Good afternoon and welcome. As you're joining us, please make yourself comfortable. We're going to be starting our live web event at 2 o'clock Eastern Time on the nose. Why don't we get this party started? Good afternoon, good morning, happy lunchtime, wherever you are across the country joining us, and welcome to our 5th annual Terrifying Technology Tales live web event. Now, today we're going to dive deep into the world of cybersecurity, exploring how to stay safe, reliable, and secure in a world of rapidly evolving threats. Now, I'd like to welcome our panelists today who are joining us. First of all, Coach Eric Stavola. Eric is the man we call Coach because he's a transformational leader. He's a master of leveraging technology to drive strategic business growth and to streamline operations. Eric, good afternoon and welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me, Ben. Excited to talk about some terrifying tales.
We are absolutely thrilled to have you with us this afternoon. Now, moving to Mac Taff. Mac's joining us live from Abilene, Texas. Mac is one of our cybersecurity professionals. Now, I personally think cybersecurity ninja would be the title I'd be looking for in his role, but maybe that's just me. Mac himself has decades of experience in multiple IT disciplines and management. He's got a master's degree in cybersecurity. He holds certifications as a certified computer hacking forensics investigator. Try saying that 3 times fast. As well as an ethical hacker and a practical network pen tester. Mac, good afternoon and welcome to the call.
Good afternoon to you. Thanks.
It's fantastic to have you with us. And of course, Peter Avery. Now, Peter is our longtime contributor. He's been on every single Terrifying Technology Tales web event, and he's worked over the course of his 30-year technology career with just about every type of technology that you can imagine, helping businesses stay safe, reliable, and secure. Now, from the server room to the expert witness stand, there is no better man to have in your corner if you want your data to be protected. Peter, good afternoon and welcome.
Good afternoon.
And of course, we have a special guest that I'm going to introduce in just a few minutes. But Eric Stavola, good afternoon. How's it going?
Doing great.
Now, Eric, just looking over our agenda together, I'm going to be handing things off to you in just a moment to talk about visibility. And after that, we're going to be walking through the realities of a cyber attack. At the end of our call, there's going to be plenty of time for Q&A, and I'd encourage our members of the audience today to pop your questions into the Q&A section as they come to mind. If you're thinking about it, there's probably other people in the call who are also thinking about it. And as a sales trainer in my world, there's no such thing as a bad question. Just ask what's on your mind. Now, Eric, I'm going to hand things over to you at this stage. At the end of the call, we will be doing some prize drawings as well, so stick around for those. We've got some fabulous prizes. Eric, over to you.
Thanks, Ben. Yeah, if you go to the next slide, what we want to talk about first is visibility for leaders. The team got together, and what we thought would be the most terrifying thing is for a leader to not have an understanding of their overall threat landscape from a technology and from a cyber perspective. If you think about it, visibility today is challenging because leaders need to have more informed decisions to make more actionable intelligence and to move forward, not only around their people and their processes, but the technology that it delivers in an organization. There's modern challenges that leaders have to face around addressing a more distributed model of a network, especially post-COVID, more of remote work. And so the threat landscape is very large. And in my conversations with leaders, the one thing that I see lacking um, is proper visibility that's easy to understand, and that they can understand and articulate, either from a framework or from an actionable standpoint, their overall threat landscape. And so that's really what the team is geared here today to do, is in kind of a humorous fashion to really walk through, what does that look like? How do we get there? So you could have a proactive defense. And with that, we've put him off way too long. I'll pass over to Ben to give him the introduction he deserves. But one of the best to ever play the game, and especially when we're talking about proactive defense. Ben, please introduce our guest.
Well, look, as a longtime Saints fan and someone who dreaded seeing this man's Bucks come to town, this is the greatest honor of my life to date to get to introduce this man. Our special guest this afternoon spent his entire 16-year career with one team, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and he helped lead that team to victory in Super Bowl 37. He's the NFL's all-time sack leader for defensive backs and was on five, count them, five, all-pro teams over his career. He was enshrined into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 2023, and it's my very, very great honor to welcome to the call this afternoon, Rondé Barber. Welcome, Rondé.
Hey, there you go. Got the mute off. How are you, Ben? Thanks for having me, man. Eric, thanks for your subterfuge and your introduction. All you had to do was say "not Tiki." That would have been perfect as introduction for me.
Well, before we get into some questions, I have to address something I asked you before, like, does answering questions about your brother ever get old? And for those that don't know, I don't know if they're identical twins or twins, but you have a brother, Tiki Barber, that I believe was at the start of the career more popular, but clearly the only one that has a gold jacket is the one that's on this webinar. So does that ever get old, answering questions about your brother?
Absolutely, it does not. And you nailed the talking point at dinner every single time after 2023, because I put the gold jacket on. He's yet to don a gold jacket. So at the end of the day, no matter how popular he was, being in the biggest market in the world, New York, and me down in little Tampa, I do have a gold jacket, but I also have a Super Bowl ring. So those two things give me the edge up in the long run. So will I ever get tired of talking about how much better I am than Tiki? Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
It's just amazing the talent that comes from one family. I see your accolades here, in as it relates to visibility, right? Both as a player, but then now as a business leader.
Yeah.
Can you speak a little bit about visibility and the importance to that in both aspects?
Yeah, I'd love to, and I'll start with some of the things that I'm doing now. So, for the past couple of years, I've been on a board of a PGA Tour golf event. I'm now general chair of that event down in Tampa, the Valspar Championship, and I can't tell you how important visibility is to what I do now. Not only as it relates to the players that are going to come play in our event, but also how do I project ourselves into the community. And visibility has so much to do with that, whether it's the setup of the course, whether it's the vendors that we're dealing with. We have to protect ourselves from the potential of loss. Really is how we look at it. Yes, we're trying to make a lot of money. Most of that, almost all of it, goes to charity. But our at the back of our mind, the reality is we're always worried about loss, and we figured that out, found that out the hard way back in 2020. When COVID hit, because we had set ourselves up to have a tournament, and the week before our tournament, it was canceled. COVID shut everything down. And so if we had lacked a vision for what was going to happen prior to that, we would have lost a lot of money. And our charity itself, Copperhead Charities, would have had some serious troubles. But we had some foresight, we had some visibility. Ultimately, we had some help, and we were able to overcome that. And I take that as an example because it's really very similar to the lessons that I had when I was a player. So visibility, to me, it's about knowing, right? It's about knowing what to expect, where to attack, where you're going to get attacked, the vision that requires to maintain while you're playing. And at the end of the day, that equals productivity. So I know one thing about me, my career. You can see all the accolades that are up here, That's over 16 years. It took me a while to learn how to become all that. But productivity mattered probably most to me. And in over time, you improve and your productivity improves. And it's very, apropos that I'm sitting here talking with you guys, VEIT, because you guys do so much. And the reason that I'm in the Pro Football Hall of Fame is because I did so much. I had a lot of jobs, right? I was a outside corner. I was a nickel back. I played linebacker to a degree. I blitzed the quarterback, intercepted. I scored a lot of touchdowns, which is the reason why I have all these accolades. But I'm looking at you guys, and you guys have 36 companies. that means you do a lot of jobs, right? You got a bunch of different ways to impact visibility and being good at what you do. So, continuing to relate this, people talk about offenses win championships. Well, really, defenses win championship because good defenses understand their weaknesses, right? They understand how teams are going to try to attack them, so to speak, right? And so that starts with preparation. What's your game plan? What you put together at the beginning every week. Understanding situational ball, what's going to happen on first, second down, third down. All you football people should understand this. Then you go out and practice it, put it into practice. You make sure that what you're doing is going to work. And then you just repeat it over time and time and time. And you become good at what you repeatedly do. And that also relates to what you guys did. Study the threats, right? Who's your quarterback that you're facing that week? Whether it's Drew Brees, sorry, Ben, I got to bring up the Saints here. Whether it's Drew Brees, understanding what he's going to do, looking at that receiver and understanding what routes he's going to run, what are his tendencies. You get to a third down, what can I expect to do? And that preparation is going to meet an opportunity for me to do what I do on defense, and you go make the play, right? And you just rehearse those details over and over and over again. And then you finally go play, right? And so in your world, it's going to do what you do every day, what VEIT provides for your customers every day, going out and playing. And then when the plays come, you understand that vision, whether the literal and figurative vision that you put into practice on that particular play, on that particular day, when it matters, helps you succeed. And I love the correlation because it's literally almost the exact same. And we have a saying, see a little, see a lot. I feel like your company and what you guys do allows you to see a little, so you see the big picture where the threats are going to come from. And those same tenets are what made Rondé Barber get all these bullet point dots that's on the screen right now.
I really appreciate that. That's it's a lot there, and it's so accurate, right? We learned about alignment, assignment technique kind of in football. For us with technology, and what we do is around visibility, efficiency, and then better visibility leads to better efficiency of your existing assets and the technology around it.
Absolutely.
Just a little bit more personal question for you. So from this, like, tremendous career in so many things, what were you most proud of? Like if you take everything, like, is there a moment? Is there something that really stands out for you?
Well, I hope there's no Philly fans on here because I do have a very popular moment in Bucs history, the 92-yard interception in the NFC Championship game that got us to the Super Bowl that we eventually won. That was probably it. But probably what I'm most proud of, Eric, and is people talk about abilities, right? What are you good at doing, right? Are you good at running and jumping? Are you have the above the neck ability? But the most important of those is availability, right? It's being there every single day. Like, when it matters, are you around? Are you able to overcome whatever it is that may prevent you from being there? And I'm probably most proud that I never missed a game. I've been from college to the pros. I missed one game. My redshirt freshman year, I broke my foot at the bowl game in Shreveport, Louisiana, and it was the only game that I was able to play in that I didn't play in. So one of the things that my teammates, my coaches, people that still work for the Bucs, that they appreciate about this 16-year career that I had is that they knew what they were getting out of me every single Sunday because I was always going to be there. And when you take inventory at the end of your career and you have that, that, I don't know, badge on your chest, it lets everybody know that that's important. Being available is something that I think is probably the proudest part of what I did for 16 years in the NFL.
Yeah, I think it was what 215 consecutive games to play.
Yeah,
that's pretty amazing.
215 consecutive starts, 245 consecutive games. There were games that I played that didn't start. I wasn't great the whole time.
Did you start right away in your career? Did you just
no? Which is actually another story, a better story. Because my first year, I didn't play. I only played in one game. I was inactive for a lot of games. So if somebody was looking at my first year in the NFL, they would not have seen a guy who, 20 or however many years that is, God, 26 years later, end up in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And so the guy that you saw in 1997, no way he's going to be a Hall of Famer. But the guy that emerged in 98 through 2012 was. And it takes a little bit of adversity. It takes a little learning to get to where I got. And that's another, I could have said that is something that I was very proud of, overcoming some of the limitations that, maybe I wasn't prepared for when I got to the NFL.
Now I'm just me personally, I'm curious on this one. So I got to dig into that one a little bit. So all the adversity, all the accomplishments as a leader, like what did you have to learn to go from that young individual, starting the league to what we see today? What were some of those learning lessons?
That's a great question, Eric. And to answer it very simply, I had to learn how to be a pro. And I didn't even understand what it was. I didn't know that I was lacking that. And I think a lot of people, when they get into any business or any thing that they're doing seriously, not understanding what it takes is a detriment. And I didn't understand what it took. And it literally was a year of sitting back, watching, feeling like it was going to all go away, that made me fear failure. And that fear ultimately turned into a driving force that, propelled my career. But it was literally going out to work every single day and trying to get better, get 1% better every single day. People talk about that all the time. You're either getting better or you're getting worse every single day. I mean, it's very similar to what you guys are talking about here. Your company is either getting better or it's getting worse. And one way you can obviously get better is to protect yourself, which you guys are preaching. But I went out every day and tried to get better and perfect my craft. Eventually it would pay off. And it did. I'm a success story for sure, but it was a lot of hard work. It was a lot of time. It was a commitment. And it was ultimately a whole hell of a lot of fun. You said earlier something about challenges, Eric, everything being a challenge, but the challenge is why you do it, right? You got to embrace it and understand that if it was easy, why the hell would you do it? The challenge is what makes it worth it at the end.
Oh, that's good. It's phenomenal. Thank you for sharing that. And what I'll take away is be a pro. We talk about visibility, but as a leader, are you being a pro around your security, your technology?
Absolutely.
So one of the things that, prior to that, team, was there any questions, anything that came up for Rondé that before jumping into some other aspects?
Well, I think we've got an opportunity here for anyone that's on the call to pop some questions into Q&A for Rondé and for Eric. Rondé, if I could take you back to that play you mentioned, right? 2002, you're up 20 to 10. Eagles are driving with about 3 minutes to go. It's an Eagles home game. You guys have never won on the road, and you've never won when it's below 40 degrees and it's 26 degrees out.
Yeah, in the playoffs, right?
In the playoffs, right? And this has been your kryptonite team over the last 2 years. Right? So it's a big moment as the game's ending, and I can only imagine what the crowd would have been like. A Philly crowd is rough on the best of days. Right then and there, it must have been intense.
Yeah, it was pretty fun.
Could you talk about the role of visibility in that play?
Yeah,
because you saw something that no one else did.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's a great way to circle back to visibility here too. So if there's anybody that was into football, then Philly was our kryptonite. We had been to the playoffs the 2 prior years and lost on the road in Philly. We played there earlier in the regular season and lost on the road in Philly. And it comes full circle. We knew we were going to have to go through Philly at some point again in the playoffs. We were a good team that year. We finished 12-4. We had a first round bye, beat the crap out of San Francisco, and then went on the road, had to go on the road to Philly again and try to beat them. And we hadn't won below 30 degrees. It was freezing. It was the most raucous crowd I've ever been around. I wouldn't let my wife go to the playoff game because, you just don't trust Philly people, or Philly fans, I should say, football fans. And yeah, we're up 20-10, and they're driving. They're going to make this a 1-score game. And Donovan McNabb is doing Donovan McNabb things. He's making crazy plays. He's marching him down the field, and he gets to the 10-yard line, and it's hurry up offense for them. We're in our hurry up defense, and I fainted as if I was going to blitz. And I saw Donovan McNabb kind of give that look to his receiver that he was going to run a hot route. So I was very aware what was coming, and the feint blitz and fall back out into doing my job, which was just being a seam defender right in front of Antonio Freeman. He threw the ball right to me, and seeing that play over and over in my head is hard to imagine that I actually caught the thing and then ran 92 yards for a game-sealing touchdown. But it was understanding the situation. I mean, I talked about that earlier, situational football, just understanding the situation, what they might do, how they might attack what I was presenting them, and then taking advantage of it. And I did, and it was the biggest play of my career, biggest play in Bucs history, if you ask a lot of Bucs fans. So
Absolutely.
it was phenomenal. It was phenomenal.
So it sounds to me like you came into the game with a plan too.
Yeah, we had a big plan, and because we had played them so many times over the years, we understood what they were going to try to do to us, and we had to find ways to counteract it. Aside from that play, we had a lot of huge plays in that game. I had a sack fumble, a couple of pass defense. It was one of those games where you talk about being in a zone, quote unquote, the zone. But the reality is, I tell people this all the time, there really isn't such thing as a zone. It's more being hyper focused and understanding the job. And when you're that way and you're overly prepared and you get opportunities, that's when plays happen. That's when big plays happen. It's when good things happen for you individually and as a team. And my preparation met opportunity and made a pretty doggone big play.
I remember it 21 years later. So now we've got a couple of questions that have come into the chat. The first one comes from Paul Faleo. He's wondering about AI, and the way that it's kind of infiltrated our lives. What do you think this technology and its role? What do you think of this technology and its role in the NFL? Is it affecting players, teams, fans, and the way that the game's played? If so, how?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I would say right now that it hasn't. It likely will, just because of the quickness of the movement. Like a lot of coaches and players, we've done things the old-fashioned way for so long. It's hard to come off of it because it just works that way. But you can see technology evolving, basically just in the sidelines. Like you can go to any practice, and whereas we go through 2 hours of practice, we'd have to go inside, wait for the film to get processed, then go to a meeting and watch the film. Now you can literally take a period of practice and get the film immediately on an iPad right next to you. And I would imagine that AI at some point will be able to, translate like live action into diagrams that can show up right there on the sideline. So you know exactly what play design happened and where people went right or wrong on either side of the ball. I can see that being an integration into live sport probably sooner than later because it's moving so fast. But it's not there yet. But technology definitely has advanced in I've been retired 13 years, in the 13 years that I've been retired.
So, I mean, those very same Microsoft Surface Pros that the NFL uses on the sidelines, there's going to be a couple of those given away at the end of this call.
Very
Rondé, we've
nice.
got time for one more question. It's less of a question than a request. We've got
Mhm.
someone wondering if you could say hello to their son, Colton.
Colton?
Colton.
Yeah. Hey, Colton, what's up? It's Rondé Barber, Hall of Famer Rondé Barber. Uh, hope you're doing well. Um, I like to younger kids like give one piece of advice, and it's very simple. Be your very best self always. Whatever that means to you, do that.
It's outstanding advice for anyone of any age. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Well, Rondé, I really appreciate the time and the wisdom that you've been able to share with us this afternoon, guys. There'll be more time for questions towards the end of this call, so stick around for that. But we need to transition at this point to our two subject matter experts on the matters of cybersecurity, Matt Taff and Peter Avery. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
We're going to have a little bit of fun with this. It is Halloween. I didn't grow up celebrating it. It's not really an Australian thing, but moving to America, you kind of see how things work. And, the kids of the neighborhoods I used to live in would always have a map come Halloween time of kind of the houses that you want to hit and the houses that are going to give away health food or, maybe aren't really welcoming of kids asking for stuff. And so what we've prepared here is a map of the Halloween neighborhood of cybersecurity. And we've built it around the 4 precepts of recovery from a cyber attack. Those precepts, of course, being don't panic, preserve the evidence, protect the business, and limit liability. And so we're going to make some stops along the way in this neighborhood of terror. And the first place that we're going to stop is the House of Horrors. Now, in our House of Horrors, what's happened is someone's come in overnight or someone's come in the morning. They've turned on their computers. They've tried to get to work. And for whatever reason, they've realized they can't because the worst has happened. Could you put us in that moment, Peter?
Yeah, before we do that, though, I'd like to make a correlation between what Mr. Barber was presenting. Defense is awesome, but everything that he did in his career and what his team did was built around some fundamental things. Number one was preparation, watching game film, practicing, having a strategy in place, understanding your opponent before you even get on the field. It's critical. The correlation with that, with what we do, is you need to have an incident response plan. You need to have policies and procedures that are protecting your business. And you need to know about your backups and be testing your backups. Those are critical. While you're on the field, you got to make sure you have the right players. Pick partners that you can trust. Pick partners that are expert at what they do. That's critical. And the visibility that he was talking about was spot on. You have to have a vantage point above the field almost, so that you're seeing everything that's happening from a security perspective about your company, about that cloud computing you're doing, about your identity. All of those things need to be aggregated into something that you have visibility into. And then after the game, it's recovery. You need to be able to recover, do that conditioning so that you can get back on the field the next week and play another game. It's critical.
Absolutely. That's a fantastic point to make. Now let's kind of dive into the nitty-gritty just a little bit here. The worst has happened. Could you walk us through those first moments and what we should do?
Yeah, we get a lot of companies that are referred to us by law enforcement, insurance, and by word of mouth. They just know who we are in the industry. And the worst has happened. So usually it's early in the morning or late at night, and that network admin is on the phone, and they've called into the hotline basically for assistance. And they don't know what's going on. And so we have to talk them down a little bit, take some of the emotion out of the phone call and say, okay, we need to make some logical decisions together. But before we can do that, we've got to scope the situation and understand everything that's going on.
Now, Mac, could I put a hypothetical to you as a business owner? This has happened, and I kind of sort of have a plan already. I've got an IT staff that I've invested heavily in. They're very skilled at what they do. I've got good backups. I've even invested in cybersecurity. Why would I be worried?
Well, this is the first house. This is the house of horrors. So the rule here at this critical juncture is to not panic. Whenever there's a lot of emotion involved, you've got multiple people on your team, you as the business leader, things are down, you want to get things back up as soon as possible. Sometimes that panic can cause you to do the wrong things. You know, you've got good backups, but it's not time to restore yet. There are other things that need to happen. At this point, we're going to say, yeah, this is probably a cyber incident. If all of your servers are down, we've got to write ransom note on the desktop. And that's when we have to get all of the business management and cyber insurance involved. So that's when this all starts coming together. We can't have a knee-jerk reaction to start deleting things, wiping computers, sending out email blasts saying to everyone and all of your customers what you think is happening, because at this point we really don't know.
So Peter, what Mac's saying there is that it's more than just having a good backup or having good staff or perhaps investing in something to financially protect you in the event of the worst. That there's more that goes on, and there's kind of a slowly unveiling horror at the nature of the situation. That's kind of what I'm picking up there. Could you walk us through that boardroom scene?
Yeah, it's very emotional when you start to talk to the leadership of a company when they're going through this type of thing. A lot of emotion, like Max said. And the first thing you need to do is kind of suck the air out of the room and say, I've been through this hundreds of times. And if you don't do exactly what I'm about to say right now, it's going to be much worse and your recovery is going to take a lot longer. And about that time, they start to quiet down. And number one, let's engage the security or the insurance company. Let's start that claim process and know that this is a hard stop. And that if they're not prepared, if they haven't done the things from a preparation standpoint, it's at least a 2-week recovery process until the recovery process starts. Because we have to look at all the evidence. There's 3 things that we're going to be doing in the initial phase. That's number one, gathering evidence so that we know how the bad guys got in, what that vector of attack is, know what they got access to, and what the scope of that exfiltrated data or that stolen data might be. And then third, determine cause of loss. Insurance companies, insurance adjusters are very adamant about understanding that cause of loss before they'll honor a claim. And if you start recovering servers and wiping out things before that takes place, before you've established that cause of loss, there's a possibility that that claim won't be honored, and you'll never know how the bad guy originally got into the systems.
So we're at the House of Horrors here. The first precept of recovering from a cyber attack is not to panic. As a Douglas Adams fan, I wholeheartedly approve of that. Don't panic. Now let's go on to this next house in the neighborhood, the Den of Thieves. The theft has happened. What do we need to do here, Mac, to make sure that we're able to recover as quickly as possible and be financially protected as well? What are the things to do and the things not to do?
The thing to do is preserve evidence in any way that we can. Typically, what we'll recommend to a customer is to unplug devices from the network switch. Don't power things off. When you power things off, you may lose evidence that's in active memory or connections that may be going out to the internet. Trying to isolate machines as much as we can without shutting them down. Obviously, the to not do is don't wipe those machines. Don't shut them down. Don't shut down those servers. Keep everything up and running to the best of your ability, but still isolate those endpoints so that we can stop the spread.
So we need to stop the spread and preserve the evidence. Peter, one thing that I'm hearing and what Mac's saying is that there's a time frame that's coming into play here too. There's steps that need to be followed in a very methodical kind of order. Could we talk about the time frame of recovery from a ransomware attack?
Yeah, it's lengthy. The initial discovery period for a digital forensics team, sometimes if it's in a larger organization, could be weeks. I usually tell business leaders you're looking at about 2 weeks before we can start getting you back to normal. And it's painful. It's a hard stop. They're not buying, they're not selling, they're not collecting revenue. In some cases, they have to find alternate ways to cut payroll even.
So as a business owner, this is starting to, really stack up.
Absolutely.
What are the temptations that a business owner would want to kind of steer clear of to try and shortcut the process?
Yeah, a lot of times they're going to try to not take the advice of that digital forensics team or the recovery team and order people to stand things up. In fact, two very publicized ransomware events that have happened recently, those companies stood up servers and they were within hours reinfected just because they didn't understand how the cyber criminals got into the systems.
Wow. So we're going through this neighborhood when the worst happens, don't panic. And as you progress through the story, for heaven's sake, don't delete the evidence. You need to preserve that evidence. The theft has happened. The only way to recover is to figure out how it happened to stop it from happening again. Now, let's talk about victims. I think this is where the rubber really hits the road. It's very difficult to turn on the TV, check the internet, whatever it is, wherever your news comes from, and not see a story about a cyber incident. And I think some of these things tend to have a bit of a numbing effect because they're just so common. Like I could throw some statistics at you, like, gosh, there's a successful ransomware attack every 11 seconds. So we've been on the call 35 minutes. That would put us at about 100, 200, and about 175 American businesses taken down in the time we've been on this call.
Correct.
Okay. The third precept of recovering from a cyber attack is to protect the business. How does a business owner protect their business when all of this is going on around them?
So the scope of what happens after you engage the insurance company is pretty amazing. So along with my team, along with the technical resources within the organization, along with the leadership, suddenly you have an insurance adjuster, you have the legal for the insurance company, you'll have a ransomware negotiator, you will have attorneys that are just around preserving the reputation of the business. You will have a digital forensics incident response team and their legal staff as well. And so you have this collection of all these people that are trying to move in a direction that sometimes is contrary to one another. And so there's checks and balances that's always happening. So as the recovery team is wanting to move and start to stand things up, they're asking for permission because they don't want to destroy that evidence the digital forensics team does. And also they don't want to extend the liability by giving additional exposure to the bad guys. So there's always this movement that's happening, and this coordination sometimes falls on the recovery team, but it almost always falls on that digital forensics team to say you can move forward because we don't need that piece of equipment anymore.
Now, Mac, if I could ask you, because your boots in the ground in these kinds of situations. From what Peter just said, I'm imagining almost a three-ring circus. There's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of priorities. There's a lot of people that each need to work towards a goal. Sometimes there's conflicting agendas, all of those things. What's the role of a cybersecurity professional like yourself?
So at this juncture, we're getting logs for the digital forensics team. We're touching just about every piece of equipment we can get our hands on, trying to identify patient zero. So we'll be getting into firewalls, getting into virtual machines, virtual machine host network switches, pretty much anything that's connected to the network. We're probably going to have to pull some type of logging for unless they've already been eliminated by the digital forensics team. And that takes time. So, and it also takes particular sets of skills, that may be inside or outside IT, as well as being able to communicate with the customer and their insurance and all of those teams, probably a few times a day.
So you're talking about
very difficult to manage.
Thank you. Yeah, I apologize for cutting across here. You're talking about a very complex situation that needs to be managed fairly tightly. Peter, if I'm a business owner who's invested heavily in their IT staff, why wouldn't I already have the resources in-house to handle an issue like this?
So security personnel and recovery personnel are so much different than network admins, network professionals. Those guys are great at servers, and I'm not discounting their skill set at all. I love engineers and they do a great job, but they're very different than security engineers. It's the difference between a brain surgeon and somebody that's a cardiologist. I would never have a brain surgeon work on my heart and vice versa. It's true. And from a business perspective, what Mac was talking about, one of the things that we're doing when a business is not prepared for an incident like this is that we're having them take inventory of their hardware and their software and prioritizing systems, processes, programs, And you have to also, on top of being technically adept at what's going on, and then also from a recovery and security standpoint, then you have to also have that business aspect. So you're looking at business processes, business process optimization during the recovery process, utilizing equipment that might be there, or bringing in additional equipment that might be needed in that recovery process.
Let's continue our journey through this neighborhood of terror. When the worst happens, don't panic. Do what you can to preserve the evidence. Don't give into the temptation to delete things or try and cover tracks. That there's no recovering without the evidence being there. We've talked about protecting the business, not becoming a victim, and that takes a plan, doesn't it, Mac?
Correct. Yes, every business should have an incident response plan. Going through those tabletop testing of all of your programs and your recovery plan, knowing who to contact and when. At what point do you declare an incident? At what point do you call your network admin for a fix? At what point do we call cyber insurance? What point do you bring in an outside security professional? Those are all things that need to be in the incident response plan.
Let's keep going through the neighborhood. We've got this house called the House of Unlimited Liability, and it kind of matches up with the precept of limit liability. Peter, could we talk about liability in a situation like this?
Absolutely. You have a bunch of different things that are happening simultaneously. One of the big areas of liability is in data exfiltration. It's a second component of a ransomware event now, almost always. So the first is they encrypt that data, they make that computer network unusable, all of your data is basically shredded. Then the next step is usually they live in the environment for a month to 3 months, and they're copying data, and they're copying the data to a place that they can manipulate and they can utilize. And the threat is, unless they pay the ransom, they're going to release that information to the dark web. That's a piece of liability. There's additional liabilities on top of that also. Class action lawsuits by the people whose data has been exfiltrated. Then you have legal liability on top of that also. So you have compliance. Look at the SEC, look at the FTC, look at all of these different levels of compliance that have mandated what the disclosure is supposed to be. And then on top of it, recently the federal government has made mandatory certain disclosure that has to take place. If you don't do that, you're putting yourself in jeopardy as a business, and the fines and penalties might even be more than the ransom request is from the bad guys.
Mac, if we could kind of dive into the live situation. You're in the war room. We're moving through, the cyber incident. You've got all these things going on. What's it like, and what are the missteps a business could take here that might increase their liability?
So as we bring things back online, hopefully we're now in a happy place where we've got the backups or something like it, or at least know how to rebuild things and start bringing things into production. So we need to take into account, what did the digital forensic find? What was patient zero? And make sure that to protect the company, we are taking care of those holes as we bring things back online, and then bringing them in a secure manner. And that ties back to what Pete was talking about as well. What the priority is for the business, what processes need to come online, and in what order, prioritizing systems and making sure that we bring them back up securely.
Now, as a business owner, Peter, if I've got cyber insurance, doesn't that limit my liability all by itself?
No. Number one, you signed a self-attestation form when you applied for cyber insurance. If by chance there was a misunderstanding or you didn't understand the questions on that form and you incorrectly answered them, number one, that could make it so that your insurance does not honor the claim. So it's very dangerous from that perspective. The other thing too is that cyber liability insurance does not increase the time or decrease the time frame it takes to recover from an event like this, or the reputational damage that could happen if you go through something.
So, gentlemen, we're just about at the end of our time together this afternoon. Peter, I'd like to start with you first. In regards to ransomware, in regards to cyber attacks, everything that we've discussed this afternoon, what would be the one takeaway that you'd want people to walk away from this call this afternoon with?
Make sure that you have a cybersecurity expert that's giving you good advice. Take the time to find a trusted partner that can check and double check what you have going on in your business. You need to make sure that you have that partner going through and validating the things that you think are true. And I also adopt a framework, just a basic framework like NIST CSF or CIS. Those are excellent frameworks that businesses can utilize to take and use industry best practice to make yourself ready for something like this.
And then Mac, Peter's been talking about the strategic perspective, and of course, a chief information security officer would be an outstanding resource for exactly what you were talking about. Mac, could you talk about the tactical response?
So having good backups, making sure they're tested, and making sure they're stored offline. Oftentimes when we come into these incidents, we will find that maybe things weren't exactly as we thought they were, or as the customer or business owner thought they were. Maybe backups weren't working or hadn't been tested, or maybe they were off-site but not offline and ended up getting encrypted as well. Same thing for some of the other, defense solutions and defense products that you might have, making sure that everything's tested on a regular basis.
Eric, any closing thoughts for us?
I like to be a pro from Rondé, right? But I'll say like P is like have a plan, right? Make sure that you have visibility and have a proactive plan. It's not about if, it's when. And so make sure that you as a leader have a plan to then what? Be reactive and responsive in both ways. And I think that could be proactive and reactive. And then you have an opportunity. So like right now as a leader, you have an opportunity to really understand your overall threat landscape and the technology, because how you apply that in your organization will make a drastic difference. So taken away, be a pro.
Speaking of pros, Rondé, if there was something that you wanted our audience to remember from everything that you shared with us this afternoon, what would it be?
That's a good question, but I would say that if anything, you're prepared for your successes, and if you don't, you're likely to fail. So it's not a hard equation. Everybody kind of anticipates what can go right and wrong, but be prepared for what's going to go right, put you in the best position to be that way.
Have a plan, have a partner, be prepared, have a strategy and a tactical response. Guys, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Now, our panel of experts will be sticking around for a little bit for questions and Q&A. But in the meantime, we've got some prizes for our audience this afternoon that I would like to get to if I can. We have a couple of things that we've got to give away. First of all, every attendee is going to receive a free IT infrastructure assessment, as well as a Terrifying Technology Tales graphic novel technology guide. Those are coming to you free of charge. There are also 3 winners that we're going to be drawing in just a moment here for the Microsoft Surface Laptop 6 and the Microsoft Surface Pro 10. We've got 2 of those to give away, all of Microsoft's latest AI-powered technology. So let's go to the drawing that our lovely assistants have put together for us. Thank you so much, Michelle and Brooke, who've really been the backbone of our call this afternoon. Okay, so starting with the first of our Microsoft Surface Pro 10s, Cole Ambrosi. Cole, if you're on the call, if you could just make yourself known to us before the end of our time together in Q&A. Now, the second Microsoft Surface Pro is going to go to Vonna Gonzalez. Vonna, if you're still on the call, if you could make yourself known to us so that we can arrange for details to get that to you. And then our grand prize winner, congratulations to Peggy Toft. Peggy, you are the future proud owner of a Microsoft Surface Laptop 6 that's coming your way courtesy of Visual Edge IT. Thank you so much for your participation this afternoon. If you could just make yourself known to us in the chat so we can make sure to coordinate prize details, all of those wonderful things. But guys, we've got a unique opportunity right now to pick the brains of some of the best minds in cybersecurity, business development, and football. Questions, if you have them, should go into the chat. Let's see what we've got so far. Okay, Cole is here. I did see a couple other names there as well. So Peter, I want to go back to a question just while some of the questions are going to populate here. I want to go back to some of the hacks that you mentioned, or the cyber attacks that you mentioned. We live in a world of something called zero-day threats,
Sure.
right? The zero-day threat being a threat that you've got 0 days to prepare for. How can a client manage, or how could a business manage for things that they don't even know are going to come?
So that's a great question. And that's one of the fundamental things that I look for in our tactical tools that we use. When you can study what normal looks like in an environment, and that's what one of our products is, one of the offerings we have, which is called Vantage Point. When you aggregate all that data into a SIM, so desktops, laptops, servers, cloud-based environments, you aggregate all that data and then you apply AI to it, that AI engine can look and see exactly what normal looks like. So it's baselining everything, and we understand when people are coming to work, the traffic flow and all those types of things. If you do that, it's very easy to identify what abnormal is. So even if there's a 0-day attack, you've already started to identify bad actors that are starting to probe your network, looking how to exploit it. And you're going to see abnormalities. You'll see things like brute force attacks, and you'll see traffic from places that normally shouldn't be there. And then that AI engine and that SOAR automation, looking for indications of compromise and potential compromise, is alerting the SOC, and we're interacting with the customer within minutes to solve the problem, sometimes acting on behalf of the customer to stop the incident before it starts. The important thing around that is when you have that type of system, you have visibility into your environment, and you can stop it before they're living there for a month or 2 or 3 months, gathering that data about your customers and your employees.
And we've got a question that came from Cole Ambrosi, one of our winners this afternoon, and congratulations again, Cole. I'm going to direct this to Eric because it's got to do with mindset. So what would you say is the biggest mindset difference between like a standard systems admin and a cybersecurity expert? What's the difference?
I think with cyber, you have to take in multiple components, not just the technology component and the systems, but it's also the emotional component. The one thing that what you're talking about here is going through the Candyland or the trick or treat map there. Business is not happening. You're down. Like there's no money coming in, and what we think could happen, like, hey, I'll just do backup or anything else, then that may hurt if you already have cyber insurance. So I can only imagine what that may be like when you're going in to talk to people. And so there has to be not only a technical component, but a business component, but also an emotional component. I think that's unfair to systems admin too. I think systems admin has come a long way from what they've been dealing with. Cybersecurity has to deal with frameworks, right? So there's a framework. Hey, it's really about safeguarding. It's not only about the technology. It's also about the administrative component, and there's also what in this case physical component. I'm using that loosely here. Physical would be dealing with the people, with your surroundings, and the environment it takes. So I would say that that's probably something in play. But quite frankly, I think the more modern system admins are expanding on that as well to this point.
So I'm gonna add a small addition to that, and that everything we do in cybersecurity is about risk. It's about risk reduction. So CFOs are some of my best people to talk to because they understand what financial risk is. And the same way that you evaluate financial risk is almost identical to the way that you evaluate cybersecurity risk. So if you're looking at those technical, physical, and administrative safeguards, you're evaluating what the risk to the organization is. How can we put compensated controls in place? Where systems admin, they're brilliant. They're putting together things for stability. They're understanding the needs of the users, whether it's emotional or technical, and they're able to walk through that minefield on that side of the house. We're reducing risk and increasing the likelihood that recovery will be quick and that they have a vantage point into that business.
I've got a question for Rondé here. Rondé, the NFL is a kind of an arms race in terms of defensive and offensive scheming. How did you stay ahead of the game? Like, I mean, you played in the era of some of the all-time great quarterbacks.
Yeah.
How did you prepare for a Brady or a Manning?
Yeah. Well, I prepared for them, and it doesn't mean that we were always successful with them. They're very good, and especially the two that you mentioned, particularly because they weren't familiar competitors. We see them once every 3 or 4 years, so it was very hard to prepare for them. But to stay ahead, there's only so many ways that, unlike cybersecurity, I guess, there's only so many ways that offenses can attack you. And I think you get into the situation where it's not really about what they do, it's about how they do it. So staying ahead of it is really just, understanding everything that they can throw at you. And then it becomes whether or not your skill level, individual and collective skill level, is better than what's being thrown at you. So staying ahead was really just, being prepared for everything that could happen for you. Now, in today's NFL, offenses have evolved, schemes have evolved. It looks way more complex, and you throw in the added element of the dynamism really of quarterbacks, and it's almost impossible to game plan now because there's just so many different variables that can happen. I mean, Brady and Peyton were actually pretty easy. They were statues in the pocket. You didn't have to worry about them being Lamar-like and getting out of the pocket and running away from you. But they were just very good executors, and you just had to out execute them. That was really your only defense against guys like that.
That's a great a point to make, and I just want to piggyback off that for Mac very quickly. The cybersecurity world has become increasingly complex as well. How do you game plan?
Game plan by keep practicing. We get better every day. Everyone that we see, we learn a new way that a new threat actor does something, a new technique, a new tool that they might run. And that way it's very, very similar to kind of what Rondé was saying. It gets more complex every day. A couple years ago, MFA was the magic bullet that could stop everything. Now it's not.
MFA, of course, being multi-factor authentication.
Yeah, and now, techniques change. People are running different plays now.
So it's important then to have the right partner in place, the right people, and of course, a plan. Now, let me just check our Q&A for any additional questions. I think, guys, we are at a great stopping point. I want to say thanks again to our Hall of Fame partner, Rondé Barber. Thank you so much for the investment of time and wisdom that you've made with us this afternoon. It's been truly valued. Mac, Eric, Peter, thanks again so much. If you've been watching our time together, don't forget that really the point of us putting this on is not for us to sell you Visual Edge IT and everything that we do, but to make you aware that there are real and pressing issues for American business right now. If you're looking for a security partner, there is no better one that you could choose than Visual Edge IT. But if you don't have one, for heaven's sake, this is a great opportunity to reach out and to evaluate who you have as in your corner. With that, thank you so much for the investment of time that you've made. We have one last question. No, we don't. We're good to go. With that being said, thanks again for your time, and we look forward to seeing you next year for take 6 of Terrifying Technology Tales. Thanks again. Cheers.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, y'all.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.